So I'm going to talk to you guys about how to become an iOS developer, or more importantly, getting into the App Store. So how did I get here? So I was a tutor. I tutor math and science, did for years. And every time my students come to my classroom, they would have the same issues, talk about education and how it's behind the times. Like most times the students would be on their mobile devices to carry out whatever tasks they have, but when they get to the classroom, they're still with the 7-pound textbooks that you guys may be familiar with static images and text, and that's not exciting, So I started thinking that maybe if I become a developer, I could probably join a team somewhere where we work on advancing fields like education that's still behind in technology. So why iOS? Well, first, for me, it's to reach the quality of the career, the community, and the intellectual stimulation. So the reach. Apple just announced that they have sold over 1 billion devices. Of course, not of all these devices are still active, but you can imagine the sheer volume of devices that they have out there. So whether you want to make apps to reach your classrooms in Charleston or in Charlotte. Charleston is where I'm from in West Virginia. So in Charlotte or in another continent, if you want to make an impact, working on apps that are sold in the App Store would be a good way to do so. And then the career. iOS or software engineering is frequently ranked as a top career on job sites like Glassdoor.com and Indeed. So the perks. Who are developers here? So if you're a developer, you should be familiar with the perks. Like wherever you work, you're going to have, at least you should have a stock kitchen. You should get like stock options. Most companies will pay for you to move from one city to the next. The job openings. If you are a developer, you should be familiar with recruiters calling you and trying to come up with innovative ways of getting them out of your inbox. And then the security. The future is mobile, so iOS isn't going anywhere. And of course, it's a good paying job. The best part about iOS to me is the community. We have a healthy group of developers that contribute in one way or next. We were ranked as the favorite language in Stack Overflow in 2015. That is Swift. Apple came out with a new language called Swift in 2014. And in 2015, it was ranked as the top language, the most loved language on Stack Overflow. If you're not familiar with Stack Overflow, it's a website on which you can ask questions and get answers. We're also ranked as one of the top languages on GitHub. Again, Swift is barely 2 years old, and it was ranked as one of the top languages. And GitHub is a place, if you're not familiar, it's a place where you can post code. So if you build something for an app, you can share it with someone else, and they don't have to build the same part for their app. And Swift was ranked as one of the top languages. And then on Twitter, I met Dustin on Twitter. I follow Andrew on Twitter. If you're on Twitter as a developer, you know that developers post whatever they find that's exciting very often. They find something exciting, they're sharing it on Twitter. You can ask a question on Twitter. You can post a question like, how do I solve this problem? And someone will respond on Twitter. And then there are multiple blogs. If someone discovers something, they're going to write something about it. Like every weekend or so, I'd watch a video from WWDC. And when I'm done, I try to write a blog post about it. So people are excited about writing about what they learned. And then there are multiple conferences. Every year, there are multiple iOS conferences that you can attend to learn about new things in iOS. And this is my community that Joey was talking about. From the sign, you can see that this color actually represents the LGBT community. We're very open, and we're very welcoming to people from all backgrounds, and especially if you're starting out. So if you're just starting out and you want somewhere to come where you can ask questions and feel welcome, we're a growing community. We have 5,700 members. I joined when we had 70 members. And maybe when we had 300 members, they invited me to become an admin on the team. and we've seen it go through this explosive growth. So you can join us, get your questions answered, whatever questions you may have. And one of my favorite parts about iOS is the intellectual stimulation. If you guys want to do something that you will never be able to master, like you chase it because, not because mastery itself is achievable, but because you want to get better at it. But every year, Apple releases new building blocks for their apps and new tools that you can use to make your apps better. And you have to learn it. Like last year, they released a variety of frameworks, and I'm still not familiar with all of them yet. So there's always something new and exciting to learn. And once you learn it, there will be people requiring you or asking you to teach it to them. So there's always something exciting to do, at least intellectually. So now let's talk about get into the App Store. How can you guys get into the App Store? And these are the things that I'm going to talk about today. There are a variety of ways of getting into the App Store or how to become a developer. This is just my way. It's not set in stone and it's not science. So a lot of times people want to argue about what steps are required or how do you do this. But this is just how I did it. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to talk about is CS50. The reason I have this here is that, in my opinion, iOS is a specialty of software engineering. And everyone should build a foundation before they start to specialize. Some people argue that you should start learning iOS if you want to become an iOS developer. But in my opinion, you should start off with a foundation. No one builds a house or a building without having a foundation. So I'm not sure if you want to build a career on emptiness. So in my opinion, you should start off with a foundation. So CS50 is an introductory course from Harvard. It's an introduction to computer science. When I took this course, I studied science in school, and I've never taken anything that was so hard. Sleepless nights. I'd go to bed with problems and wake up with solutions. And it was exciting, but it was so discouraging and tough. But it was worth it. I built a great foundation on which I was able to solve problems in iOS. And I see people now who are iOS developers who skip the foundation step. And they are asking me to solve critical thinking problems that you would have learned if you had taken an introductory course. So the course also provides a certificate. So if you take the course, you can get a certificate for completing the course if you complete all the assignments. They also have a strong Reddit community. So if you have questions about the course, about the assignments, there will be someone in there to answer your question. And the assignments are graded. It's graded by a computer, but at least you get some kind of feedback on your assignments. And of course, it's free. So once you've taken the introductory course in computer science, you'll learn about problem solving. You'll learn how to Google, because software engineers know that Googling is one of the best skills you can have. Because you won't always have the answers, but if you go to the web, someone out there may have had the same question in the past. But you want to transition from that basic course into iOS. So Treehouse is a good way to do so. It's a reputable organization. And they have multiple iOS courses that can take you from one step, from the introductory step up to advanced levels. They also have an active forum where you can ask questions and answer questions and participate by helping others. And it costs $29 per month. But I think I paid for the course maybe for 3 months or 2 months. I'm not sure. I don't remember exactly. But this $29 a month is really worth it. But if you don't want to pay for the course, you can go to this website. And if you're an iOS developer, you'll be very familiar with this website. It's a free alternative. They have a lot of introductory courses, too, that can take you from an introduction to computer science course to an introduction to iOS. And they have top quality articles, and they have very frequent releases. And they also have an active forum. So under an article, if you have questions, you can ask questions. You can ask it there and get it answered. And now the next thing is the Stanford iOS course. This is the best thing I did for my iOS career. It's very tough. And again, a lot of people suggest that you skip this because this will take you months to complete because it's very tough. It's very rigorous. This is the same course that's taught at Stanford. It's not watered down or anything. It's the same course is handed to you, and it's available. It's taught by this guy called Paul, and this guy used to work with Steve Jobs, so he really knows what he's talking about. The course is rigorous. Again, it's going to be tough. You're going to go to bed with tough problems in your mind, but it's going to be worth it in the end. I remember watching each lecture at least 3 times because the material was so hard to cover, but I was committed to completing the course. There are also assignments given in the course, which if you don't complete the assignments, it almost doesn't make sense. So it's best to do the assignments. But I remember when I was done with the course and I felt like I'd leveled up. I felt like I can conceive an idea and go to Xcode, which is where we build our apps and take the idea from conception to actual something that I can interact with and deliver. So when you're done with this course, you will feel the difference. You will feel that your capabilities have gone to another level. And if you don't feel that way, you can go back and watch the lectures and see if you had missed something, because every time I watch those lectures, it felt like I learned something new. And the next step is going to be building. The best way to improve any skill is by practicing. Just like learning a new language, you practice by speaking. So this is the same thing with iOS or any software engineering. The more you build, the better you get. When I was done with the Stanford course, I knew I was ready to build something. So this was my first app. It was called Place It. And I was very happy with the way it came out. It's an app to find interesting places around you. Hotels, bars, restaurants, or gas station, or a club, if that's what you're into. So I was able to build this when I was done with the Stanford course. So I was very happy with where I came. And the next step is to join a community. When I was learning to build apps, I'm from Charleston, West Virginia, and there are no other developers there. Well, maybe there are 2 or 3, but it was pretty bad. It was pretty lonely, and I couldn't go home and talk to my spouse about developing apps because she doesn't care. Like, I can't tell her about this stuff because it doesn't ring a bell with her. You know, people don't want to talk about stuff they don't know about. So the best way for me to talk to people and get feedback was by joining a community. When you join a community, right, you'll see these guys come in there and they'll post stuff and it will blow your mind and it will inspire you to go out there and get better. You'll post code and they look at it and say, hey, how about you write it this way? And you learn from these guys. You get this, it's like free mentorship and inspiration by looking at them and how good they are. And once you see where they are and where you are and you calculate the difference and you're like, well, in a few years I could get to this point, you realize that you start working harder, you read more, and they'll tell you what they did to get to their position. And of course, you get to share, because one of the best things you can do to learn is answer other people's questions. So when someone posts a question, you can answer it, and by answering the question, you get better yourself. And again, if you're looking for a community, I'm inviting you to mine. All right, and the next thing you should do is read blogs. In fields like healthcare and teaching, you know, they have what you call continuing education credits, where every year or so they expect you to complete attend a certain amount of conference or do certain participate in academic endeavors to show that you're up to date with what's going on in the field. There's no such thing in iOS, but there are blogs. There are people excited about sharing what they've learned, and a good thing to do is to read blogs consistently to keep up with the developments. All right, so now these are the things that I covered, and I just wanted to, before I close, to remind you guys. So you take CS50, it's an introductory course, you go to Treehouse, and then you move on to the Stanford course, and then you get building, you join a community, and you read blogs. And this is where you could find me on the web. I'll take questions. Yes, I studied radiology first from my undergrad, and I did post-bac where I did biology and chemistry. I love math and science, yeah.
What aspects of that background would you say were most helpful in you restructuring your mind for programming?
Well, the critical thinking, because in math and science it's about questioning how and why things happen. And you will write code each day that will blow your own mind. You're like, wow, this is amazing, right? And And it's tough, it's difficult. And that was what math and science was for me, because I took the highest level of math and science courses, and I always wanted to advance to the best levels in those things, and that helped me. The work ethic that was required to get through those courses, that helped me a lot with learning how to program. And then the critical thinking skills, because you may know how to do something, but if you need to solve a tough problem, you have to be able to think critically. And you have to be able to question how and why things happen, because even if you do something a particular way, that may not be the best way. And even if the best people are doing it a certain way, maybe it's time that we push the boundaries, and thinking critically will help you get there.
How did you decide what to build first in the project?
Oh, that's a great question. People ask me all the time, why didn't I build something about education? So what I wanted to do, I wanted to get into the App Store so badly. And the education projects I have in mind are so massive, and they require so much more work, and I wanted to get something in the App Store as a resume builder. Because when you don't have a CS degree, you have to prove yourself one way or another. And a good way to do that is to have apps in the App Store. So when I started working on my app, the functionality was there, but the design was terrible. And I kept on reiterating on the design until it got better. So there's nothing sophisticated beyond what I decided to build. But if I had a team, I would build something that would make a difference, like in healthcare, education, or nonprofit.
How long did the CS50 course take you to complete when you were kind of getting started?
3 months. But it was one of the worst 3 months of my life. Yes, and it's long, and it was tough, and it was very frustrating. I remember getting up at 2 a.m. in the morning with a solution in my mind. And I don't know how this works, but it just shows us the remarkable engineering that goes on in our brain, like how we were built. Because I would go to bed with a problem, like a tough problem on my mind, and I'd wake up at 2 a.m. with a solution, and I couldn't sleep. I had to go up and implement that solution. So this career will ride you. You can't put it down. You can't be like, well, it's time to stop working now, I'm just going to walk away. You'll have a problem on your mind. So you'll go to bed with one of two states. You'll be like, I just crushed a bug, and I'm excited, and I want to wake up tomorrow and do something else. Or you may go to bed with a tough bug on your mind. You may wake up with a solution, or you might still wake up where you went to bed. But it's always exciting to me. It's very exciting.
Your analogy to continuing education is a great balanced response to the controversy over JavaScript.
Over what?
JavaScript fatigue that's been come up recently. Like fatigue in learning new things, I think continuing education is a good way to answer.
Right. I don't know. If someone says to me that they're fatigued about learning new stuff, I'm not sure how excited I'll be to work with that kind of person. Because this is a field that advances at a breakneck speed. We know that. Mobile technology is about how fast can we build something new and something exciting to keep customers coming back to buy and keep people stimulated, intellectually. And this field requires that you learn and teach, and you have to be excited about those things. You have to be able to learn something new and teach it to somebody else, and that's exciting to me. I'm not saying it should be exciting to everybody else, but I'll be more apt to work with someone who is like, hey, this thing came out new. Let's go dig into it and see what we could build with it. Go ahead.
No, back to your point about Twitter. That's something interesting, because last week I tweeted like, how do you respond to someone who tells you I don't have time to learn something new? Like, that's something that is like, as a software engineer,
yes,
you have to find time to learn something new.
Yes.
I mean, you have to.
You have to, yeah. I mean, you schedule it. I tell people all the time that you make time for what's important to you. Someone says they're busy, to me, they just want to sound important, because you choose strategically what you do with your time each day. And if you schedule blocks, for me, like if someone calls me and be like, hey, let's go do this, I'm like, nope, schedule it ahead of time so I can put it in my block, because I have things to do. I have a family to maintain, and I have things to build, and I have to plan my day to get through stuff. I also have to read 2 hours per day, and I have to read a blog article. I have to catch up on my Twitter. I plan these things so I can get it done. It's possible if you work hard enough to get it done.
Starting out, how many hours per day would you say you allocated towards just learning iOS?
Hey, so I work part-time as a tutor, so I work from 2 p.m. until 8 p.m. If I wasn't tutoring, I was coding. It's commitment. That's what you do if you want to learn something new. It's tough, it's hard, and the other engineers here will testify to the fact that you feel every day that like you're not good enough. There's something inside of your heart that says, you're working on a problem, you can't solve it, you're like, am I even good enough to be doing this? So if you want to learn, you dedicate as much time as possible to it. You either are working or sleeping or you're working on it. If you look at athletes or artists, people who want to be good at anything, what they do is do it 24/7. And when they're not doing it, they're thinking about doing it. And that's what I did.
I noticed you listed Ray Wenderlich there as a blog source. Did you ever look at any of their videos?
I haven't looked into their videos. I've watched a couple, but I didn't spend a lot of time to really have an opinion or a valid opinion. But video is hard, in my opinion. The thing about video that makes it hard is that iOS is going to change next month, and it's hard to go back and update the video. So as a student, when you go there and you're learning, the video is old. It's not matching what Xcode is telling you to do, and it's hard. I don't know. Treehouse does a good job because they update very fast too. But yeah, I love Ray Wenderlich. He's helped me a lot with the blog that he has, but I don't have a valid opinion on his videos.
So what projects are you working on now?
So I'm working on getting a job. That's my project right now. But I just built a test project and I made it available for free on GitHub. But if I had a choice, I would really be working on like healthcare and education projects. I think healthcare in the greatest country on earth should be better than it is right now. Education, we're ranked terribly in education. I think we can do better, and I think the brightest people, some of the brightest people among us are software engineers, and they are the ones who should be involved in the process of trying to improve education and healthcare, and also the nonprofit sectors that affects people among us. So if I had a choice, those are the things I would really work on.
Do you recommend learning a more foundational language like Objective-C before you get into the Swift?
So Objective-C, in my opinion, is nauseating. I would not tell anyone to learn Objective-C. The first time I looked at it, I literally almost puked. It's not my favorite language, and I have no qualms about saying that. When I took CS50, I learned C, though. And at that time, when I learned C, I thought C was the best thing ever. I'm not kidding. I thought it was amazing. We had a command line, and it's literally a black space. You just type code there, and it just worked. And I was like, there's nothing cooler than this. Until I went to make iOS apps, and I was like, wait, this is way cooler. So I learned C as a fundamental language, and it's very powerful. It's very fast. It's in a lot of systems that exist today. And that's the reason I encourage you to take a fundamental course, because you learn a fundamental language there, like C or Python. And it will take you far away, because the assignments in those courses are logic-based problems that they're like, how could we build this? And once you build it, people will critique your code and say, maybe you could have done it this way to improve it. Yeah, but I do encourage you to learn a fundamental language that will take you into Swift. But try to skip Objective-C if you can. Any more questions?
Are you learning or using Swift on Linux? Are you going to write any web applications in Swift? Can you talk about that?
Yes. So the cool thing about Swift being open source is that if you build an app, if you have an improvement to make, you have to go through Apple to get improvement, right? But if you could write the app, write the code to store in the cloud, once you update the cloud, then your apps, once it connects to the cloud, it gets the updated code. And that's what that's actually one of the most exciting part about Swift now. You could write cloud code with Swift. It's a new field. A friend of mine just wrote an article about it on Medium, and it's something that's the next thing I'm going to be working on. There's always something new to do, and it seems like it's overwhelming, but it's actually very exciting. I'm excited about what we're going to do with Swift. Swift will be I don't know. I don't want to make any predictions, but Swift is amazing. It's amazing. It's safe. It's welcoming. Like when you look at it, you don't immediately get scared. Like when I look at Objective-C and those square brackets, I'm like, what? And yeah, Swift is just amazing to me. It's very welcoming to new developers. More questions?
Did you look at lynda.com at their courses?
I did look at Lynda initially. But how I feel about a lot of those videos online is that they often make promises that they can't keep. They're like, you can go from beginner to an advanced developer in 6 weeks. I've been doing this for 2 years and I'm not advanced. I don't even know what advanced is. I don't know how you define that as a software engineer, because there's always something you could do better. You can always improve. You can always learn something else. And you're always, for me, it's more of a journey than a destination. You know, like on a journey learning something new and impacting people as you go along. And those courses, because they want you to complete them, they have to water them down to a certain level. I like the courses that you have on open courseware websites like MIT and on edX.org, because those are complete courses those are taught in actual universities, and not just universities, but some of the best ones we have in the world. So when you go to those courses, you know it's not being watered down to keep you there, because they know that students will get bored very easily. Like, no one wants to sit through a lecture that lasts for an hour or hour and 50 minutes. It's hard. But in my opinion, that is a filtering method. It shows that the people are committed to getting through, to learning and becoming the best they can.
One more question. The Stanford course, last time I looked at that some time ago, it was Objective-C. Have they upgraded that?
Yes, it's now in Swift. But Swift has advanced so much, so the course would be hard to keep up with now because the syntax has changed so much. But it's still the best course you could get on the web to learn iOS development, in my opinion. It's free. It's taught by a very experienced developer, and it's rigorous. It's hard to get through, but once you get through it, you will feel the difference. It's a great course, and it's also a good way to learn how to Google, because when you get stuck, you're gonna have to find solutions, because the code you have on the whiteboard won't work. So you're gonna have to figure out how to make that code work. It requires a lot of resilience, and that course will teach you resilience.
So how would you, if you had to set a benchmark for what you would consider a quasi-advanced, good,
iOS?
admirable developer, what would that person look like?
What they're capable of doing, or what would they look like? All right, so technical capabilities. A good developer would be able to work with a web API, in my opinion. I'd be able to pull information from the web in the form of, say, JSON, and parse it into a way that the user can understand and present it to the user. So that's a good technical skill. You pulling information from the web, parsing it, and presenting it to a user. What they would look like, in my opinion, is a good developer is one who is willing to learn and teach. And they're very empathetic to people of all backgrounds. So you welcome people who don't look like you. You welcome people who aren't as fast as you, and you're willing to teach them. And you understand that the minute someone starts asking you a question, it's less about your technical ability and more about your ability to teach it to them. And you put your ego behind you, and you're more interested in helping people to become their best selves.
Talk about increasing your reach. You want to reach as many people as possible. Have you looked into maybe a more universal sort of development, say using web technologies and being able to cross-compile those to Android, iOS, and web technology?
You're talking about like React Native and stuff?
Yes.
No. And this is the reason I've not looked into it yet. iOS itself, there's so much to learn just through Swift and just the iOS frameworks that you have to learn. That's so much. And in my opinion, React, to me, would be another specialty of mobile development. And for me, fundamentals are important and foundation. So I want to solidify my foundations first before I move on to React Native. React Native used JavaScript, if I can remember well, and JavaScript makes me puke too. But it's not. It's something I would consider learning. As soon as I'm comfortable with this, I'm like, let me go look at this. But yeah, there's so much stuff in Swift alone that I want to learn how to do and do very well. before I move on to stuff like React Native. You're right though. If I know stuff like that, I'll be able to reach a better crowd, like or a bigger crowd, across on the Android platform. But Android makes me puke too. So.
What are some of your immediate goals for like learning with Swift? Like what are some things that you're trying to learn or attempting to solve?
Well, right now what I'm doing really is I'm working on a lot of technical problems like the fundamentals of computer science, like algorithms and data structures. I just want to understand how and why things happen at that level. So actually for the last 2 weeks I've been really knee deep in stuff like that, like how to build a data structure and why we use them and how the complexity of the algorithm and the data structures. The complexity is how fast your algorithms will run and or how much space they'll take up. So I've been investigating a lot of stuff like that. I really want to be good at stuff like that. Like if someone presents something to me, I want to be able to present them a solution that considers the fundamentals, and not just iOS, but just computer science in general. No more questions? Thank you guys for having me. I appreciate it.